Okay, let's talk about partitioning and voluming drives, splitting up storage, however you want to say that. Really not however you want to say it, but how it should be said, right? All right, so we got solid state drives, SSDs, and we've got hard disk drives, spinning planners, and so on. And also, we call them solid state drives. There's also USB storage devices, CDs, DVDs, all sorts of different things. On Windows, you actually can partition a whole physical disk. So you have to get away from thinking of a drive as a physical disk. And normally that's what people think. So like if I got a drive C or a C drive, that's where all my stuff is stored. Most people will think, okay, there's a physical C drive sitting in my computer. Well, that's kind of true, maybe totally true, maybe not at all. We can take a physical disk and divide it up into pieces, and then each one of those will get a drive letter. So let me show you here. Let's just do, I'm going to pull up Windows disk management. You're actually going to be doing a lab with this, and I'm just going to pull up some pictures because, oh, well, we can really see some good examples from there. Let's see, hopefully this one will have a very nice picture on here. There we are. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So this is disk management within Windows, and you will use this in a lab. And you can see down here, it has disk 0. And it says it's a basic disk, and it's basically about 500 gigs. And it's got a CD-ROM drive. But the person has separated it into a C, E, and F, and probably because they should have done a D, but this one was D at the time, blah, blah, blah. In any case, what's going to appear in my computer or computer will be, here's your C drive, here's your E drive, and here's your F drive. The system reserved is not going to show up right here. That is actually a drive that Windows created and does not have a drive letter associated with it. Therefore, you won't see it. If we assign it a drive letter, then you'll see it. Windows works off of drive letters, and you can see here we've partitioned it, or it's been partitioned into 4 different drives. Now there's others here that show some, some pretty good stuff. There's one that's got a green drive on it. There's some free space in disk management. See, it says free space, and it shows that this is a logical drive here. We're not getting into that. That's just like, what? That's a little more confusing at this point. And there's our C drive. And so if we look at the one that's labeled, C drive is labeled, that's all we're going to see. We will only see the C drive unless the other has been mounted into the system at some place. And within Windows, you use disk management to do all this stuff. So again, my point is, you can have one physical drive. This is a really good product, by the way. I have it. It's really awesome. You can get a free version. They'll let you play with it. And then you'll see E, D, C. And there's a lot of things that you can't do within the particular, they're pulled up computer management, and then here they're on disk management. Disk management will not let you combine drives back together. This partition assistant, AOMI, it does allow you to do that. It'll let you do all sorts of fancy stuff that Microsoft won't let you do. It's one of the top ones out there where you can combine drives back together and so on. Anyway, so back to the drives, we can partition it into different things. Now the new term, instead of saying partition, right, you partition a room. And if I say, well, I really want to partition this room, most of the time what people are going to think is you want to split this room in half. You want to put a wall up or divide it somehow, because that's what partition means. It means to divide. You can divide up a hard drive however you want. So the first portion of dealing with this is just to create these spaces. You just create them. I want this to be this size. I want it to be this size. You can just create these partitions. Another term for that is volume. Well, I'm just going to create this volume and this volume and this volume and this volume. Once you format it, now you're talking about what will I be able to do with it. And at that point on a Windows system, it's going to say drive letter, right? It's like if you're formatting it, you're getting ready to use it, it should have a drive letter in Windows. The reason I just keep saying Windows is Mac doesn't use drive letters. They use a name of a drive, and Linux doesn't either, because Linux is a copy of Unix and Mac is based off of Unix. And so they don't use those, they just use a name. They also have a device name associated with it. But in any case, you can create volumes or partitions, but see for here it says, for example, Windows 95 only allowed a maximum drive size of 32 gigabytes. Well, actually, on Windows 95, I could have created whatever drive size I wanted. I could have created whatever partition size I wanted, whatever volume size I wanted, all meaning the same thing, right? I could have done that. But when I went to format it, the formatting of Windows would be FAT32, and it would be going, don't know how to help you here, dude. FAT16 can't deal with it, right? FAT32 has a limitation of 4 gigs of a file size. You want to do 32 gigs, right? It's a process of not the OS, but the actual file system you're putting on it. So I could, again, use a totally separate product than something in Windows and created 200 gigabyte drive spaces. And then when I went to format it so it would be compatible with Windows 95, it'd go, I can't do it. I won't be able to do it because of the file system that you're putting on there. So partitioning, what I want you to understand is partitioning is like creating a storage space. For instance, right here, each volume you create on a disk consumes some storage space. In other words, if you create 3 volumes, you may be left with 400 gig available. So that's not, I wasn't actually going to talk about that point, but they're talking about volumes, storage space, right? So partitions, volume, storage space, that's all the same thing. And these days we usually deal with volumes, right? Now they're talking about the old way of doing things, and so this is how the term was used. And you'll need to know that for the old way of doing things, but for the new way, right? If you're kind of come in and say, I've got a Mac OS, and so I've got a new drive and it's 10 terabytes. And so I'm thinking of splitting that into 4 separate pieces on that 10 terabyte. It would not be wrong to say, I'm going to partition that into 4 different spaces. It would also not be wrong to say, I'm going to create 4 different volumes on that drive that are all equal in space. That's the same term. All right, let's, I'm going to stop it there, and then I will create the video that shows this stuff. And they obviously have the information that's very targeted, showing you how to create a partition. And of course, in the labs, I'm letting you explore much more than that and trying to get you to think a little bit beyond what you've learned and maybe learn some new things that are going to help you really understand this is what we do with drives. We go ahead and create partitions or volumes, and then we format them given whatever file system that we're going to use. And now they're accessible to a system. All right,